Kimberley Kitching was a loved wife, daughter and friend. She died suddenly just over a week ago, aged just 52. Today she was farewelled at Melbourne's St Patrick's Cathedral.
But Kimberley's view of friendship and of love was all in and absolutist.
Kimberley Kitching was also a senator in the Australian Parliament who had made a significant impression in her relatively short time in the upper house. She has been remembered in the past week for her assertive work on human rights and on upgrading Australia's sanctions regime. And she was not just a member of the Australian Labor Party, but a powerful factional warrior in her own right, in the particularly fraught world of the Victorian right. These different aspects of Kimberley Kitching's life have come together since her death in what has appeared to be an unseemly public mix of very real grief and anger at her death, interwoven with political, factional manoeuvring and retribution. There has also been anger that the media has been covering this story, even before Kitching's funeral. This was seen as disrespectful to her family.
I've got to say I think this is an unfortunate discussion to have 2 days before a funeral of someone.
But those who argue the media shouldn't be covering this story misunderstand that the story has been driven by the very family, friends and allies who are closest to her. Among them is former long-serving MP Michael Danby, who spoke to 7:30 with the permission of Kitching's husband, Andrew Landernew.
She was a strong woman, a deep friend, passionate, whip-smart intelligence, spoke 5 languages, a cosmopolitan Aussie girl who ruffled some feathers but always in a cause.
2 separate issues concerning Kitching have been at issue in the past week: her stalled pre-selection and her icy relationship with some of her Senate colleagues. Both are claimed to have added to the stress she was under in the lead up to her death. But both are equally now disturbingly entwined with power plays.
Admit the senator.
Kitching was nominated by Labor in 2016 to fill what is known as a casual vacancy, left when former Minister and factional power broker Stephen Conroy left the Senate for the private sector.
Do you swear that I will be faithful?
It was a captain's pick by her close friend and factional ally, the then leader Bill Shorten. Kitching was far from a political novice. She worked for the controversial arm of the Health Services Union, scrutinised in 2014 by the Trade Union Royal Commission, and had a solid base of union support. She had worked as a political staffer and a Melbourne City Councillor. She was deeply embroiled in the particularly internecine wars of the Victorian right faction, where friendships were made and unmade over decades. Those power struggles often went spectacularly bad.
The Victorian Labor government has lost a 3rd minister in the...
Allegations of branch stacking in 2020 by another sub-faction of the Victorian right led to the operations of the Victorian branch being suspended and the affairs of the party in the state being taken over by the federal executive.
Premier Daniel Andrews requested the intervention, the first in 50 years for Victoria.
There were beneficiaries of that, basically the socialist left and its small group of allies in the right, the Miles Conroy SDA group. And that meant that Kimberley's pre-selection was dangled over her head for a year.
To be clear, Michael Danby is sheeting the responsibility for the delayed pre-selection directly to other parts of the Victorian right, and specifically to Richard Marles, the deputy leader of the Parliamentary Labor Party, and to Stephen Conroy, who remains a power broker even though he has long left the Parliament. 7:30 put this to Richard Marles and Stephen Conroy. Marles declined to respond. Conroy did not respond.
We can't say what caused her death, but we can say that here was a strong woman with her own faction who normally would have 45% of the Labor Party wanting her to be pre-selected for the Senate. Because Labor was suspended, she didn't have that support. Being marginalised in Canberra.
The anger isn't just about Kitching's stalled pre-selection. Kitching took her own path in the Parliament. She made her mark in political attacks in Senate estimates hearings, sometimes controversially, including by opening the way for the government's attack on Australia Post Chief Executive Christine Holgate. But it was on policy issues, particularly when it came to China, where she really ruffled feathers.
Kimberley's views on foreign policy were more hawkish than the conventional wisdom in Canberra. You can see that on the inquiry into the Uyghurs. You can see that in the way she pushed for this Magnitsky human rights legislation.
Kitching had also made friends across the political divide. to a point where she was regarded with suspicion by her colleagues. They thought she regularly leaked against the man who had replaced her friend as leader, against the party and against them.
Bill Shorten, I think, described her as a political warrior.
She was a warrior and she played politics hard too. But one of the things she was concerned about in the Labor Party, and she raised with me, is that you and Christina Keneally would be weak on China.
These tensions boiled over in 2019 when Kitching was urging a Senate tactics meeting not to back a Greens motion on climate protests. Labor Senate leader Penny Wong reportedly said to Kitching, "Well, if you had children, you might understand why there is a climate emergency."
My motivation in that exchange wasn't to personally attack her. My motivation was to express the distress that many children feel about climate change. But what I said was insensitive. I regret it. And I apologised as I should.
But things really came to a head last year during the white-hot politics of the Brittany Higgins story.
I was told by one of your senators 2 weeks before about what you were intending to do with the story in my office 2 weeks before.
Oh, I had no knowledge of this.
No one had any knowledge.
Okay.
I had no knowledge of this.
How dare you?
Order. Now we will move.
It's all about protecting yourself.
The result was that Kitching was dumped from the Tactics Committee, a move her friend said occurred without her being given an opportunity to defend herself. Kitching said she was being bullied. Her Senate colleagues deny this.
Penny's a lawyer. She knows about natural justice. Accusing people of working with the Liberals without being able to put their case is just not fair.
Politics is a rough business, but the allegations swirling in the wake of Kimberley Kitching's death raise complex questions of where rough and tumble ends and bullying begins, and about the role gender plays in perceptions of these things. Would a male politician being dumped from a tactics group because he was suspected of leaking be regarded as bullying? Would his colleagues be referred to as mean boys? On the other side, given the debate about the treatment of women in politics, should Labor's leadership have done more to address Kitching's documented complaints about her treatment? And could some form of inquiry help resolve these questions?
And what happened to her was beyond the normal argy-bargy of politics. She complained to the deputy leader. Was that passed on? She complained to the workplace group. Was that passed on? Albo could simply stand up and say to the family, "We're sorry. We did the wrong thing."
Always lurking in the background of this story is raw politics. An election campaign is only weeks away. This is a story of factional warfare underneath a human story. If it continues to play out in public, it could damage the prospects of the party that all those involved claim to love.
I don't think it would have happened if she was still the offsider of Bill Shorten and Bill Shorten was leader.
I believe that Kimberley would want everyone in her Labor family to channel their grief, to gather their strength and move onwards from here.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.